Hey guys, this is Tauna. Today we're going to be talking about some underrated, in my opinion, Bloomburrow commanders. Everyone's kind of talking about the big, Cruel Claw, Yigrub, even Wick and stuff like that. Like everyone's kind of talking about the big ones. But I wanted to talk about some of the other ones that I think are kind of potentially sleeper strong, or at least sleeper interesting, right? Like not everyone wants to go build the exact same decks, otherwise we'd have a million, Attractor decks and stuff. So I wanted to kind of talk about some of these in case they prompt you guys potentially to build them, or at least kind of keep them in mind as you're looking at kind of different cards and different decks that you might be interested in. So the first one here is Zoraline, which is, what kind of prompted me to make this video. I talked about this a little bit in one of my previous videos, but honestly, I think Zoraline is potentially very strong. People kind of start reading through and they kind of get to this part here about, whenever a bat you control attacks get +1, and they think, she has to be bat tribal or something. But no, there is very interesting ways you could potentially build her here. Having a look at this second part. So whenever she enters or attacks, you can pay a white and a black and 2 life. When you do, return target non-land permanent card with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. First of all, this is not needing to be a creature. You can bring back any non-land permanent card, right? There are so many cool ways you can take advantage of this with different things. So ways you could potentially build her, like self-mill, where you're self-milling through and then, bring Zoraline in and Zack with Zoraline, and then you can bring back stuff, some discard stuff to kind of go alongside it, or Surveil or something like that to be able to enable you to get some nice stuff into your graveyard that you can then use Zoraline to bring back. You could use Blink, which is probably the one that I am most tempted about at the moment, because it is just when she enters, right? It's when she enters or attacks. So if we run a Blink deck, we can blink our creatures back in when, start again. We can blink Zoraline, which means that we can do that resurrection more often. The reanimate, bring stuff back, but then we can also blink the creatures that have the finality counters on them. And if you blink the creatures that have finality counters on them, then boom, they don't have finality counters on them, because any creature that gets exiled and then comes back does not keep its counters. So Zoraline will enable you to be able to, one, get rid of those, bring stuff back, but then if you blink it, then boom, the finality counters are gone. There's just a lot of great ways to take advantage of that. But then also, if you blink her, then you can just bring other stuff back as well. So you can combine like a blink with like either self-mill or aristocrats or reanimate decks. Like, there's just so many cool ways you can take advantage of Zoraline. This once per turn or once per when she enters or attacks is just it's a suggestion rather than a hard rule, because we could just flicker her and kind of bring her back from that. All right, the next one here is Beezer, the Bounding Spring. I think a lot of people kind of overlooked Beezer as well. Because of, it's when you enter, blah, 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 right? So you've got like an ETB. However, this ETB is 1, 2, 3, 4 things, depending on if an opponent has more than this, or if an opponent, now in Commander, that's actually bonkers, because there's a chance that at least one of the 3 people has more treasures than you. There's a chance that someone has more life than you, or more creatures, or more cards, right? Like there is a high chance that you could potentially do all 4 of these each time, which means that if you run Beezer in a blink deck, a flicker deck, then you could just do this so many times and you can get so much value from Beezer. Now, obviously, Beezer doesn't exactly enable that. Something you might want to have another creature in the command zone that instead enables that. But personally, I don't mind having, the deck built all around flicker and blinking things and stuff like that, and then have the commander just be an incredibly strong character that I can bring in and then just flicker them and then just, get a heap of value from it. All right, the next one here is Mr. Foxglove, and I'm actually surprised that I'm not seeing more about Foxglove. I know that people were interested in it, but I'm surprised I'm not seeing more people interested in it, especially because of how crazy this goes with one of the previous precons. So this precon here was the Deep Clue C one, which came out with Murders at Karlov Manor, and it is about drawing cards and drawing and drawing and drawing. So much draw in this deck, but it is around, and also just building up your hand size and then getting value from having more cards. Mr. Foxglove loves draw, right? So we can take advantage of this part here. If you didn't draw this card, put creatures out. So we can cheat so much stuff out. So if we combine Foxglove into the Deep Clue C, or, even in the actual precon that he comes in, the Peace Offering precon, there is a lot of card draw in there anyway. You could, do Group Hug combined with the card draw, but also just big mana, right? You could do so much big mana stuff with this. If you drew, like, let's say you draw an Ulamog, or, something huge, like look at how many big creatures there are here. If we draw one of those and then we attack, we have more cards in hand than whoever we're attacking. Boom, we can just cheat them out. A very fun, very interesting commander for that, in my opinion. Maybe you guys disagree. Maybe that's why it's not seeing as much love. But personally, I think that there's a lot of really great stuff you could kind of pull off with Foxglove that I love to see what you guys come up with. All right, the next one here is the Old Acorn Gang. So Old Acorn Gang is the secondary commander for the Squirrel deck. The Squirrel deck comes out, it's got, Hazel Bloom as the main commander, and then you've got like Chatterfang in that deck, and everyone looks at Chatterfang and they're like, why would I run any other Squirrel commander? But I think Old Acorn Gang could be a very interesting commander, especially with this part here and the fact that there are so many Squirrel token generators. You could generate so many tokens, and then you've got Toski, who can't be blocked, right? Oh, sorry. Attacks as you combat, indestructible. So you could buff up your Toski with the Old Acorn Gang and all your other Squirrel little dudes, or you could even just buff up Old Acorn Gang. He does have Menace, Trample, and Reach. And then from there, kind of tap them all down. And then you've got green, so you've got a lot of different untapped stuff, like what, Seedborn Muse? Seedborn Muse is green, right? Or am I going crazy? Yeah, Seedborn Muse. Untap all your permanents. Now, unfortunately, you can only do this as a sorcery, but you can buff up like a creature so much with that, and then just create a million Squirrels tokens that are then, coming, buffing up. And, I just think that it would be a very interesting take on a Squirrel commander deck, as opposed to just going with Chatterfang and pushing up Chatterfang and stuff. All right. Next, we've got Wildseer Scouring Moor. I think that Wildseer could be very, very interesting. A Gruul, enchantment commander. There is, people have run Gruul enchantments before, but there hasn't been really a Gruul enchantment commander, right? And given the fact that it's just enchantment spells, you could run a whole bunch of the different Gruul enchantment creatures and run, you're in green, so you've got a lot of the enchantment creatures. You could just do whole lot of stuff with that. You're in green, so you can ramp to heck. But the interesting thing that I think, the thing that I will be very interested to see what people do with is auras. Now, there has been, some aura commanders for Gruul in the past and stuff, but I think that just buffing up a huge Wildseer with a whole bunch of auras, and then because of that, each aura will become a secondary aura, and then, you could get because of the cascade, you cascade into another aura potentially. You could just do a whole bunch of really interesting aura stuff with Wildseer. You can obviously, because of the fact that there is other aura slash equipment commanders that are Gruul, you could take some of these and put them into the 99 as well, to kind of run along the Wildseer. But Wildseer just kind of making all of your enchantments into 2-for-1s, in my opinion, is pretty interesting. All right, the next one here is Arthur, and Arthur's probably the one that I am most interested in potentially building from these, besides Zoraline maybe. Arthur just looks really interesting as a Winota Light. So if you don't know who Winota is, I'll just bring her up here. Winota, essentially, when you attack, whenever a non-human creature you control attacks, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You can put a human onto the battlefield tapped, against indestructible, etc. So you're essentially kind of cheating something out with that. Now, the thing is that everyone looks at Winota and they're like, what the fuck, man? Get that out of my table. Because she's just really, really strong and enabling you to be able to cheat so much stuff out. Arthur is kind of similar, except for the fact that, one, he needs him and another creature to attack, and you're only doing this once, so it's like a more fair Winota. But then the creature will then go back into your hand after combat. So there's some really cool stuff you could potentially pull off with this, with either like tokeny stuff. So whenever a creature comes out, create tokens, which I can't actually see many cards for here, but like the ones that are like, whenever you play this creature, create, 2 whatever tokens or something like that, lots of cool stuff that you could do with that potentially. Like here, Wildfire Awakener. No, that's going to X cost. Wow, I'm blanking out on which ones I'm talking about though, right? Like the ones that when they come out, create a blah blah. There's a whole bunch of goblins like that. You could just do that because it's going to create double the tokens, because one will come out, then it goes back into your hand, and then you can play it again. You could also just run him as like a blink commander, because of the fact that he's essentially doing like a bounce where it comes out and then comes back to your hand. You can get double value from those ETBs. Or, just being able to kind of do that and then also run a blink package in there to enable, once they come out, then they get blinked, so then they can do it again. You're in, like you've got white, you've got blue, that's all the flicker stuff you need in there. And then you've got red to enable like, some haste stuff. You could just do so much cool stuff with it. Or you could just do big mana, right? There is no limit to what matter value this thing has to be. Arthur goes in with like 1 rabbit, and then boom, now you've got an Ulamog coming in, or something like that. Like, you could just do some really, really big mana stuff, like, Jadoon Enforcers, or, just cheat out some huge mana stuff with this, and just do really interesting kind of, I'm throwing these huge creatures at you, and then you got to have other ways to be able to cheat them out later on. So, there's, stuff like Face of Bow or something like that, where you're going to exile it with your Suspend, or, well, that's actually just Suspend. You may cast a spell with Suspend. Or, just some big kind of cheaty out stuff. Find some big cheaty out creatures and stuff like that. Like, create like a whole bunch of ETBs and just do some really cool stuff with it. I don't know. I think that people are going to build this commander very, very interesting, but I'm just surprised I'm not hearing more about it. So yeah, let me know down in the comments what you guys think. Have a great day and goodbye.